Why Abu Dhabi? Why this is a good market?
For those who don't know, the UAE went into its own kind of mini property recession.
A few years after COVID, what continues to drive the property sales market in Abu Dhabi?
Even if you're a non-resident, you can buy property in the UAE, and even a foreign company can buy property in the UAE.
Hi, this is Meara. I'm the Director of Transparent Property Management. And today I have a special guest, Ben Crompton,
Hello.
who is the boss of Crompton Partners. And you know, we're part of Crompton Partners. And today we're going to talk about something about the sales market in Abu Dhabi. Obviously, it's something that Crompton Partner does very well at. They do very well at leasing and sales. Look at all the awards at the back. So today I'm going to have him talk about how the market in Abu Dhabi is doing and what is the projection of Abu Dhabi sales market. So if you are not yet ready in the market, maybe it's time for you to think about it. All right, Ben.
Thank you for having me, Meara.
Thank you for having me. All right. So can you just give us a bit of introduction to Abu Dhabi's sales market? Now, I guess a lot of people probably will be thinking like, why Abu Dhabi? Why this is a good market to consider? So can you just let us know where we are now in terms of the market? How is it doing?
Okay, so the Abu Dhabi sales market, for those who don't know, the UAE went into its own kind of mini property recession from 2015 because of the oil crisis, and that bottomed out in about 2020. So Abu Dhabi's seen its real estate sort of come from that very low point and is now starting to appreciate in value. We've seen huge gains in Dubai, Abu Dhabi much more modest gains, but it's coming from a very low base. So we think that there's a lot of room for growth right now in Abu Dhabi. Property is very cheap and it's creeping up in value.
So you think if you want to get something that has room for growth and at a good price, now is time to really consider Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, I think Abu Dhabi is kind of unique even in world property, in that the rest of the world, the property market's pretty much been going up since 2008. We're seeing like Europe falling back now, but the UAE had its own, and actually the Gulf had its own mini property recession, which kept prices of property low for a long time. So now hopefully we'll be able to reap the benefits of that.
Right. And when did you start seeing, when did we start seeing the price started to go up? 2023, you would say?
No, to 20, probably end of 2020, beginning of 2021.
Oh, that early? End of 2020?
Yeah. Oddly enough, we thought that that COVID would destroy the market completely, but actually had the opposite effect. It turned the market round in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and that's probably because the policies enacted here attracted a lot of people from places where they didn't agree with the COVID policies. So property appreciates on demand and population increase, and the population of the UAE has grown exponentially since that.
Actually, I believe the government was also doing some initiative, right? Exempt the transfer fee of 2%. Or title deed registration.
Yeah, so there
kind of stimulate.
Yeah, there were some short-term stimulation policies. One of which was reducing loan-to-value from 25% to 20%, which was a help. And they waived the fees for a certain period of time. But those have been rolled back pretty much. The loan-to-value is still in place. So even with those being rolled back, the market's still very positive.
And obviously, we are already a few years after COVID. What continues to drive the property sales market in Abu Dhabi?
The only thing that ever drives, really sales and leasing is population growth, is demand. Yeah, it's a simple supply and demand play. Supply has always been quite limited in Abu Dhabi, unlike Dubai. We add 2 or 3% to the housing stock per year, and so the government has been really pushing private business, trying to bring companies into Abu Dhabi to try and boost population and obviously diversify the economy away from oil.
But wow, okay. So how much population has grown, like from 2020 to now? Do you have any?
So they just brought out the Abu Dhabi census, and population's almost doubled since 2011, up 85%. I think we're just over 3 million as an emirate. Abu Dhabi city is slightly different, but as an emirate.
I would have thought, and I would think a lot of people probably think like UAE market or Abu Dhabi market is predominantly driven by Russian buyers, after the Ukrainian war. Do you agree with that?
Certainly at the high end.
At the high end?
Yeah, but I mean, there are not. I mean, there are an enormous number of Russians, and a lot did come to the UAE. But you need a broad-based population increase to be able to drive up everything. And so what's happened in Dubai in particular is the whole market's gone up. In Abu Dhabi, we've had patches of serious increase in prices. Those patches are basically in Saadiyat Island, mostly around Mam Shahid and Saadiyat Beach villas, and those have been driven by Al Maria Island and the ADGM. One of Abu Dhabi's big drives, and you see this in the news all the time, is to try and get more financial managers, more hedge funds, more financial institutions into the Abu Dhabi global market, which is our version of the DIFC. And those people, obviously very high net worth individuals, they want to live close to their work. So it's really driven up prices in Saadiyat. And to a certain extent, yes, the rest of Abu Dhabi, even, places like, Reem Island and Raha Beach have been slower appreciation, but they're starting to turn around now.
Okay. So how did the market perform in 2023?
So 2023, depending on which reports you read, probably anywhere between 3 and 5% in terms of price appreciation.
Price appreciation.
Yeah, more in villas. Usually about, most reports will say about 5% for villas and 3% for apartments.
I think we have the stats for Q1 2024 already, right? So how are we doing in 2024?
Very similar. Still, if you're looking year on year, still very similar. And in the quarter, around about 1%.
And would you say you expect to see the same trend in the rest of 2024?
Yeah, I expect, steady growth.
To continue to grow like 2-3% per quarter?
No, not 2-3% per quarter, but I would expect around about 5% growth over the year. So you're looking at about 1% per quarter, something like that.
Oh.
Yeah. Although we are seeing, and it's normally a lead indicator that rents are going up again, a little bit more aggressively than sale prices at the moment. So hopefully that's a sign that the summer influx, which we always get because of schools, might be bigger this year than it has been in the past. I mean, we see more schools opening, which is a sign that hopefully more businesses are opening, more people are being employed, and the population in Abu Dhabi is growing.
And you did mention UAE is a very unique place to buy properties in the world. So how is the rest of the world doing in comparison? I mean, you probably are not the experts for the rest of the world, but if we have to position Abu Dhabi's property sales market, why is this place so unique compared to the rest of the world?
I mean, in terms of performance at the moment, our properties are appreciating, whereas I think in a lot of Europe in particular, properties are depreciating. If you look at the UK and France and places like that, property prices down about 5% over the year. US is an outlier. US property prices still going up. So from that perspective, I think Abu Dhabi, in terms of capital appreciation, is still very positive. In terms of rental yield, you still get very good yields in Abu Dhabi. You should be able, if you look around and pick your property, you should be able to get 7% net, which is fantastic. Interest rates, you can quite easily get 4%. Which compared to the rest of the world is very, very good. So it keeps your property yields high, and of course, if you're a foreign investor, there's no tax on capital appreciation or on the income from the rent. In the UAE, people's circumstances might vary depending on which country you're from, but no tax on capital appreciation is a huge one, because obviously if you do get serious appreciation in property value, you can close that out and not have to pay what in most of the world is a 40% tax.
That's true, because I think tax is not just only saving you money, but actually save you a lot of hassle, right? In time, you have to deal with the tax, and then if you miss paying your tax, then there is always a huge penalty.
Don't mess with the tax man.
Yeah, and then I think another thing is buying process in UAE is relatively straightforward, I would say.
It is.
I bought one in Manchester. Oh my God, just get the surveyor, the solicitor to do my surveillance report, take about 1 or 2 months.
Yeah.
And I think, so this is my first purchase myself in Manchester, but before that, I was trying to buy one in London. and we lost the deal because they either did the due diligence on the wrong person, not my husband, but my husband's brother, and then deny our mortgage application. And then when they tried to redo it again, the seller is like, it's taking too long. I'm not interested in selling anymore. So
True.
I think relatively speaking, in Abu Dhabi is very straightforward, right, the process.
It is. If you're a cash buyer purchasing a unit that does not have a mortgage on it, you can do it in 2 weeks.
And so to a lot of foreign buyers, I especially know the clients that we manage, most of them are foreign buyers, and a lot of them, they don't even have residency in UAE. Can you just give them a bit of a legal framework for, so that they understand the process of what it takes to do the sales transfer here in Abu Dhabi? Is it something that they need to watch out, has a lot of complication, or where is it?
No, it's quite straightforward. Even if you're a non-resident, you can buy property in the UAE, and even a foreign company can buy property in the UAE if you invest through companies. In terms of a mortgage, you can usually get up to 50% mortgage from most banks here, even if you're a foreign buyer, and they just take the credit score that you have from your home country. If you're using finance, most of the banks are obviously reasonably comfortable with foreign buyers. There's quite a few now, and there's actually a move from Abu Dhabi government to get more foreign direct investment into the real estate market. Companies like Aldar and their off-plan projects are actively targeting foreign buyers and having roadshows in UK, Russia, Kazakhstan, India, all over the place. You do need to be physically present or with a power of attorney. But once you attend the municipality and go through the paperwork, you get a piece of paper which is called the title deed with your name on it, showing you are the owner. So it's a relatively straightforward process. It could take, if you're using finance and it's a finance seller as well, maximum 2 months, and that's mostly with the banks doing their work between themselves.
And then you did say that even foreign buyers who don't live here and who don't have source of income here can still get mortgage here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I did help one client, PM client before, but I think back then it was quite limited to the number of banks actually providing mortgage options to foreign buyers who don't have income here. And now we got plenty of options available in the market.
Yeah, plenty. I mean, we have HSBC here as well, as a global bank. Yeah, and they're very active in the mortgage market as well.
And what is the interest rate for foreign buyers who don't live here? Is it higher?
It would be the same.
Is it 4%?
I mean, there's different deals in different banks, but 4% is definitely achievable.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very safe. I mean, you get freehold now as a foreign buyer in most places. The real estate law is very well embedded now since 2005. People are confident with it, people are comfortable with it, and foreign buyers are buying all the time.
But when we talk about how safe it is to buy, I mean, should we divide the off-plan transaction and then the ready build transaction? Because I think ready build, it's quite straightforward. You see what you get and then you pay the money and that's it. But then how about off-plan? Is it safe to buy off-plan deals in Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, it is. It's very easy to buy off-plan if you're a foreign investor. Very, very easy. I mean, they make it incredibly easy. And as long as you're buying from a reputable developer, I mean, your only risk with off-plan is that it won't get completed and the developer will go bust. So as long as you're doing your due diligence on the developer, making sure that you're investing with someone who has deep pockets and has a history of delivering their product, it's very straightforward.
And is there any legal framework to protect in those situations if the developers don't complete their construction?
Yeah, so all your payments as a buyer go into an escrow account.
It's mandatory now?
It's mandatory, yeah, which is managed by the bank and can only be released once the developer hits certain milestones, and none of it can be released until 20% of the building is already built. So your money is protected in the escrow account, and the developer has to build the first 20% before it can even start taking money out. So there's quite significant protection there.
And what is the usual down payment
that the investor have to do?
Between 5 and 10% for the initial down payment, and then you have further down payments, which again are linked to milestones. So the developer can't ask for your next payment until they have hit a milestone, and that's been verified by the escrow account holder.
Right. So it sounds like a good leverage option. Like if you are having a few investment options and you don't want to miss out Abu Dhabi real estate market, but you want to utilize your finance and other sort of investment products, you can just buy it off plan, put down a small amount down payment, wait till it gets complete in 2-3 years time before you have to commit a large sum.
Yeah, I mean, you usually need to pay 40% over the life of the project. So if you're buying secondary market, you can buy secondary market usually with 20%, depending on your risk profile. So it can be better to buy secondary market because you'll end up using a smaller amount of money. But the life of the project is 3 years, so you're paying 40% over 3 years pretty much until it's handed over.
But for off-plan sales, it's all done in the developer's office, right? There's no title deed or anything.
So there's no title deed, but in your app, you can see your off-plan purchases. There's a real estate app called Dari that they have in Abu Dhabi, which will show you all the properties that you own, and it will show you your off-plan purchases as well.
That sounds very safe. Then at least it's still official with the government, right?
Yeah,
Not
it
just
is.
like a document sit in the developer's drawer,
True.
saying like, this is the property I own. Okay. And then in terms of like off-plan sales, what are the price points we're looking at? Like how much is the entry point and how much is like, the average price?
I mean, it varies wildly. So you have, studios, and some of the cheaper options can be 500,000 dirhams, which is about $140,000. And all the way up, you can buy, huge villas for 40 million dirhams.
Right.
$11-12 million.
Right. So would you say like the sales process in general is just first find an agent, find the property you like, either off plan or ready built, then the agent will go to prepare the MOU, collect security deposit from the buyer to secure the unit, get both parties to sign, and work with developers. If it's off plan, work with developer directly to complete the transfer to you. If it's a ready build, then work with the community management, get an NOC, clear all these payments, then book appointment at ADM to do the sales transfer. For ready build, for off-plan, obviously, it's all done in the developer's office.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And so you either need to be here personally or you need a power of attorney to be in your place.
So it's quite straightforward. Okay, right. And this is getting into a bit nitty-gritty. I'm not sure whether you're the
Go
best
ahead.
person
I am the best person.
for everything. So, if we are talking about the cost involved with completing a sales transfer, what are the things that investors need to consider on top of the purchase price?
So the big one, well, the big two, broker fee normally paid by the buyer. Not applicable to off-plan sales because the developer will pay the broker there, but otherwise it's in the secondary market, it's 2% of the value of the property. The other one, which is applicable to built and secondary market, is the transfer fee. In the UK, the equivalent would be the stamp duty. And again, that's 2% in Abu Dhabi. It's 4% in Dubai. There are some other smaller fees. So for example, if you're taking a mortgage, 0.1% of the mortgage will be required as the mortgage registration fee to register the mortgage in ADM. And then if you're buying, it's always applicable, you have your service fees. Now, might need to pay some of these before you transfer, but these are the community charges that are leveraged by the owners charged by the owners association to maintain security, AC in the halls, pool, gym, all that kind of stuff. So those are always applicable. For apartments, they're between 10 and 15 dirhams per square foot, and for villas between 3 and 5 dirhams per square foot.
Okay.
So those are the main fees. There's
And then
some
also
other
chill
small
water
fees.
capacity charges if they buy in.
I mean, obviously you have your utilities.
Right.
Yeah. Chilled water can be in place if it's an apartment. So a chilled water is a way of cooling your AC. For villas, mostly the AC is cooled by just electricity.
And I know some development projects, they also charge for the master development fee, right? But I
That's
think
in your service charges.
it's already rolled in. So you
Yeah.
need to pay on top of anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously you want to hire a property manager, which is definitely worthwhile to consider.
Yes, hiring a property manager.
It will save you a lot of headache, for sure. So after, let's say, a foreign investor or a buyer and they finish the transaction, what are the risks or what are the other things they have to, watch out for? Like, so this property is there already, and is there anything else that they need to consider, like upkeeping the property or challenges they may face?
I mean, there's a lot of registrations that you need to make with, and we've spoken about it before, utilities. So you need to make sure that the water and electricity are in your name, that you subscribe to the chilled water provider if there is one, that you subscribe to the gas provider if there is one. Another big thing is the Tawthiq system. So Tawthiq is the government tenancy system. So when you have a tenant in your property, you need to make sure that you and the tenant have signed and issued a Tawthiq, so that tenancy is registered with the government. And the Tawthiq is really important for tenants if you want to send your children to school, if you want to sponsor a housekeeper, something like that. So that's another, system that you have to be registered with.
And as PM, we have helped many clients with Tawthiq issues, various Tawthiq issues they face. I mean, sometimes can be a little bit confusing, but if you have an experienced team, like on the ground to do it for you, usually it's also quite straightforward to sort out. And I would assume a lot of the foreign investors, they buy to invest, right? So they would like to get a tenant and to occupy their property.
Yeah,
absolutely. Is the
absolutely.
process like straightforward in Abu Dhabi as well?
In terms of getting a tenant, I mean, you'll need to get a real estate broker to advertise your property, do the viewings, and get a tenant. The process is reasonably straightforward, but the paperwork again is a bit of a headache, because when you buy, you need to put all the utilities into your name. We said water, electricity, chilled water, gas. The tenant will also need to do that as a sub-account to the owner. So again, there's a lot of paperwork to go through, and you're going to need to make sure that you can navigate that, or have a property manager to navigate it for you. Because yeah, I mean, one of my tenants is leaving at the moment, and to work out between TAM, Dari, and Provis apps. These are 3 property apps that you have, and there used to be Smart Hub. The Abu Dhabi government is doing its best to consolidate and make these things easier, but sometimes it's a nightmare to navigate which app has which information on it. So it is a problem, and it is helpful to have an expert help you out.
Definitely. And if you are unlucky, if you got a bad tenant, is it easy to evict tenant from your property?
Yeah, it is relatively easy. So you can evict a tenant. You can open a court case 21 days after they fail to pay their rent. The court will then give them 15 days to dispute the finding. After those 15 days, you can then move to enforcement and have your tenant kicked out.
Do you need a lawyer here to represent you?
It's probably better to have a lawyer represent you. You can do it yourself. The system is set up, and actually UAE legal system is set up, so a lot of people do represent themselves. However, it's much easier if you're an Arabic speaker. If you're not, you definitely need a translator or a lawyer. But lawyers, are very cheap in Abu Dhabi, and opening legal cases is also very cheap.
And I suppose that is a huge difference to owning a property in Europe, because I know European laws, a lot of time they protect the tenants a lot. Even if the tenants are not paying, you're still restricted to not evict them because of some human rights concern. I think a French property manager told me during winter time, they basically couldn't kick out any tenant because it's against the French law. So would you say that is a plus to own the property in Abu Dhabi for an investor?
I mean, Abu Dhabi laws are very landlord friendly, much more so even than Dubai.
Oh, really?
So in terms of being able to kick your tenant out at the end of a tenancy contract, you just need to give the tenant 2 months notice before the end of the tenancy contract, and you can kick them out for any or no reason. In Dubai, you have to give them a year, and it has to be for a reason. Like, you're going to move into the property or undertake major maintenance. And if you don't move into the property or undertake major maintenance, they can come back to you and claim a year's rent. So Abu Dhabi is very, very pro-landlord in that respect.
Okay. Which I think actually gives the peace of mind to a lot of landlords, because like having a bad tenant and then you cannot do anything with that tenant is probably the worst case scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
Nightmare to most of the landlords.
Yes, absolutely.
Where the tenant just ran away and disappear and then make mess in your property. That is also another nightmare.
Yeah, that is true.
And do you see the market change drastically anytime soon in the future?
No, I don't. I mean, the Abu Dhabi is growing. We've got some really interesting projects happening at the moment. Hudayrat Island is a fantastic example, which is a massive island just off the coast of Abu Dhabi. Creating a lot more beachfront and that kind of thing. Fahid Island is going to be launched soon again. So we're seeing some really interesting projects launch. Abu Dhabi growth has always been pretty, slow and steady and dependable, predictable to a certain extent. So I don't see any major changes happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't considered the possibility, but it might well be a good idea to talk to a property manager before you even make a property investment, because brokers are influenced, as much as we'd like to think they aren't. They are influenced by commission, the ease of the deal, whether it's a split deal or not. And perhaps if you do want, more independent advice, because a property manager, doesn't get paid from the transaction, then and they might have a more kind of holistic view of, the investment in that community or the community that you're considering, might well be worth talking to a property manager about that.
Because I think a lot of investors, they don't consider the after purchase. The value of your property actually has a lot to do with how well the property is being maintained. How well your property is being maintained. And then I'm not just only talking about your unit per se, or your building per se, but the entire community, right? If you're in entire community where the entire building is maintained well, like Sun and Sky, it is an old building. We're talking about 15 years, but it's still the most sought after buildings in Ring Island, right? Like most popular one. Yeah, still very popular by renters and by buyers because it's well maintained. But there are some buildings that we've seen much newer, but they're not being managed well in terms of the building. And then their value depreciate very quickly, or you never see the appreciation just because that people don't like it. They don't like the building. They don't like how the community is being managed. And that gives a bad impression, no matter how beautiful your unit is inside, right? So
yeah, very true.
Yeah, I think that definitely speak to a property manager. We give you the honest advice. All right. So now, I know, Ben, you have just recently bought a new unit in Abu Dhabi. So I'm just curious to know, like, what made you decide to put the money in this market?
I mean, obviously, I understand property and I understand, the Abu Dhabi real estate market. So it's something that I'm comfortable in investing in. Yeah, and often people will invest in things that they know more about, because you understand, the risks and the rewards. Generally, I invest in property because it gives you that kind of like double threat. You get an income from your investment and you also get possible capital appreciation. Whereas in most people, like if you invest in stocks, you do get a dividend. It's small, but you're mostly betting on the capital appreciation first for the stocks. The only other thing that I think is similar is possibly bonds, investing in the debt market, where you do get capital appreciation. It's capped, and you also do get a yield as well. So I think for those two reasons, property is a good investment. And always take out a mortgage, understand leverage and the principles of leverage and what leverage can do for your returns. It makes property investing very, very positive. A lot of people worry about property prices going down, so you just got to make sure that, your exposure to the bank, you can manage, any kind of decrease in rent.
Right. And I think that is a very important point. Like when you buy property, you should always think about how you manage the cash flow, because property is not something you buy and then that's it. It's like you buy and then you have to maintain it. There is cost to it, like the service charge, the chill water capacity charges, maintenance charges. And then if you have mortgage, you have the interest that you have to pay to the bank. So
the question is like, right now you own a property, do you have enough positive cash flow to maintain that property despite the market goes up or down? And I think that is a critical point. Good job, Ben.
Thanks.
Where did you buy? Where is your property?
Bought an apartment on Yassat.
It's a very popular area.
Yeah, it is popular. I think there'll always be a lot of demand there because of the entertainment venues that are there, you know, with Water World and Ferrari World and things like that. So it's a very positive, family-oriented place. There are, you know, a lot of there's one school there now, but 3 more being built. So I see it as a location where Abu Dhabi is putting a lot of time and effort into, trying to, you know, turn it into a real family-centric hub.
Is it important to buy near schools, you would say?
Yes, I would say so. Generally, obviously, if you're buying 1-beds and studios, probably not. But if you're buying anything else, you know, 2 beds and up, you know, proximity to schools is something that families look for a lot. I mean, the first thing families look for is job, get a job here. Second is school. Third is product.
Because like I'm from Taiwan, so to Taiwanese people, when they are picking a location, one thing that's very important for them to look at is whether there's any public transportation infrastructure going through there. Is it near a metro station, train station? But in Abu Dhabi, we don't have those things.
Everyone drives.
So public transportation is not a big thing. So what is the main indicator to choose the best location to invest? Like, what would you consider as a prime location, and what are the things that people should look for? Like school, perhaps, is one.
School's a big one. Another one is amenities. You know, proximity to entertainment for families, for children, beaches. You know, the pool and gym, pretty much everyone has them. If you've got a nicer one, you know, golf courses even to a certain extent. So amenities is very important. And also, you know, clusters of similar communities. So if you're a Western expat and you're coming to Abu Dhabi, you know, there's places where all Western expats stay. So Raha Gardens is your kind of like 101 of where, you know, if you land in the country, you're probably going to have a look at that and think about, you know, living there if you're looking for a villa. If you're looking for an apartment, you know, depending on your budget, but then, you know, Raha Beach is going to be the first place that you look at. You know, maybe Yas Island as well. You know, those are places are popular, you know, with you know, Western expats in particular. You know, other teachers, it's going to be Reem Island, you know, so, you know, understand those kind of communities and who looks there and why.
So basically, to find places where a family with kids can enjoy living will be a good way to begin the search if they're looking for it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if you're looking for an investment product, you know, if you can get the yield on a 2 and a 3 bed, it's much better than a studio and a 1 bed. If you can get the yields tend to be lower in those kind of units. But if you can get 7% net in a 2 bed, I would definitely go for that because you get a better quality of tenant. Someone who's got maybe young children, who's going to stay there longer, you know, who's going to have a more stable, you know, work environment
compared to just a studio, because the turnover of tenant for studio is very high.
Yeah, and tenants want to look after studios. You know, they'll always be looking to upgrade. They want to move to a 1 bed, want to move to a 2 bed. You know, they're always, you know, they're always trying to upgrade, and because they've got a low income, they're not going to, you know, really look after that property as well as a family would do.
Right. Although very interestingly, recently the landlord sent me a message. So we manage his studio on Reem Island. He was like, "Thank you guys, you know, to your team, how well you've done. My tenant has just terminated the contract again." And to be honest, my heart sank. I was like, what? Like, is he going to be angry? And he said, no. And then you found a replacement tenant very quickly. And I got more rent from tenant termination. So he basically said he got extra ill because the tenant, you know, terminated contract. And a lot of those tenant termination is not because of us, because they lost their job or they are relocating to different countries.
Or upgrading their units.
Right. So it's not because we did a bad job, but then their job situation changed. And the landlord was so happy when the tenant terminated the contract. It was like, great, extra rent for penalty period. So if you have to give advice to first-time investors, what would you advise them to begin their search journey? Like, what is the first step that if they want to know more about Abu Dhabi real estate market?
I mean, the first step would be, I guess, to do your research, either get advice, we're talking about getting advice from a property manager or a broker that you trust, do your research online if you want to, and then invest in something, mid-market, stable, that I would suggest people invest in built property first, as opposed to off plan. Certainly if you have a little bit of extra income, or you want to buy 2 units, maybe buy one built and one off plan. But if you're the first time investor, although off plan is very, very potentially attractive and it's very easy to purchase, you just kind of sign the contract and it's done. I'd buy something that's yielding to begin with, and like I said, focus on the yield. If you can get 7%, net or close to that from a 2-bed, in one of the developed communities like Raha Beach, like Yas Island. If you can get it on Saadiyat, great. One of those places where you're going to get a good solid tenant who's going to stay there for a while, and make your life easy.
And would you advise them to buy and hold? And
Absolutely.
Hold like for how long? 5 years?
I mean, don't put a number on it. I'm very much from the Warren Buffett school of investing. I don't recommend investing in things that you think are gonna go up very quickly, because the risk on those is higher and they could go down very quickly as well. So
Right.
I would invest in something good, solid, stable, and can be able to control when you sell. You'll never lose money on property as long as you control when you sell. As long as you can control through the downturn, make sure that your rent will cover your mortgage repayments, hold on to that property, and then manage when you sell, and sell, when's convenient to you, when you feel you've reached a certain valuation. But I wouldn't say, go out with, I'm going to hold it for 5 years. It doesn't
Right.
make sense, because we can't predict what the property market's going to do. Even had a client, say to me, what's going to happen in the next year in real estate property market? Is there any good literature on that? And you're a fool if you're going to try and predict that. So just make sure that you're investing in something stable now, that you can manage if there is a downturn.
Right. Yeah, that's a good advice. Just keep an eye on the market situation if you do plan to sell. And then is it easy to resell?
Yeah, very easy. A lot of people will say, it's very difficult to resell, but that's mostly because, of price. So there are always willing buyers in the market. There's a lot of buyers in the market out there now. There's about 50,000, units in Abu Dhabi that are privately owned and privately held. So there's a lot of buyers out there. So if your unit is priced, at a market price, you'll be able to sell it.
And I would definitely say, like, getting a knowledgeable, experienced broker to help you is so important, because in Abu Dhabi, you can easily find a lot of advertisement of, property advertised with this price for sale, but it's actually not true. A lot of them are either not true or they're wishful pricing. It's like the property probably only worth 1 million, but then the seller put up for 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 to see whether they get any buyer. But the price that you see advertised is not necessarily the price that's being closed, in reality.
Correct, yeah.
So if you want to truly understand your property's value, I think the quickest way is to find a good broker who knows that area well and ask them, what is the latest, properties that you've closed in this area? What was the price, approximate to the type of unit of
Well,
mine.
these days we can see the actual transaction numbers from the Abu Dhabi municipality, so we can see all what units are
Right.
being sold for these days.
Because you guys have those data, right? Like the
Yeah.
actual sales transaction price.
We do through Quanta. It's not publicly available, but we have access to that
Right.
data.
So if you want to know what is a price that is similar, to your unit, it's not widely available, because I know in Taiwan it's all public knowledge. You
Mhm.
can find it online. What is the price that's
And
being
you can in
quoted.
Dubai too. It's public knowledge in Dubai.
Oh,
It isn't in Abu Dhabi yet. We assume it will be in the future, but
right,
we have that knowledge now.
right. Okay. And so in Dubai, they also have this crowdsourcing platform now, right, where you don't need to be the sole owner of a property. You can buy with
don't
the.
do that.
That's a bad idea.
If you're gonna invest in something like that, invest in a REIT. The legal complications surrounding fractional ownership of UAE property, don't get involved.
Really, even though they said it's like regulated with DIFC and they set up like an entity to hold those units, which are, owned by a lot of different owners, you still would apply.
Yeah, I mean, things like selling your share, where it's being held. Is it being held with a Delaware LLC?
Right.
Does U.S. law apply? There's huge problems, potential problems with that kind of purchasing structure. So if you don't have enough money to buy property, invest in a REIT, or save up. But the fractional ownership thing, I would be very wary of, and make sure that you understand the legal context.
Right. Okay. I think we're close, coming to an end now. So do you want to say something to the foreign investor, what kind of support that they will be getting from Crompton Partners or Abu Dhabi in general, to make their purchase journey easier and less, worrying about, what may happen?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Abu Dhabi, like I said elsewhere in this conversation, is actively encouraging foreign buyers. Of course, most buyers in Abu Dhabi are not, UAE nationals. They are foreigners of some description. They might have residency, but so Abu Dhabi's, mechanisms are very comfortable with people who are not UAE nationals buying, whether they're residents or they're buying from abroad, and they're actively pursuing those foreign buyers as well to try and diversify the market here and make sure that when they do launch, product, they're not just selling to people here, they want to sell to foreign investors as well. It is important that you have someone to go on this journey with you, whether it's a property manager or a broker, who understands the market, and someone who you can trust. Particularly, like I said, buying off plan is easy. It doesn't take much, but when that thing is handed over, all the paperwork and all the hoops you need to go through for your utilities and for your tawfiq, for your community service charges and all that kind of thing, you will need someone to hold it.
And it doesn't really matter how much budget they have, right? Abu Dhabi had enough options for people to consider below 1 million, 2 million, 3 millions and above.
Yeah. Like we said before, I mean, you could enter the market at 500,000 dirhams, so you'd need 250,000 dirhams, and for 50% down payment, the rest you can get as a mortgage.
And last thing, a golden visa is obviously it's a great incentive for people to buy in UAE.
It can be very attractive. Yeah. So for that, you need a unit or units worth more than 2 million dirhams.
Sorry, I said that was the last
10
question.
years.
Right. I said that was the last questions, but this is the last. Do you see Abu Dhabi introduce income tax anytime soon that will affect the property ownership on rent or on capital appreciation?
I don't see any tax on property. Income tax might come, so corporation tax is at 9% now, obviously of profit, and I would expect that income tax might come in later at something similar to that, just to stop people simply moving profits into salary. But property historically for the UAE, particularly Dubai, has been a massive income driver. So I don't think that the UAE will do anything to seriously dampen that market by introducing, capital gains tax or even possibly taxing rent.
Thank you, Ben. I won't bother you further.
Thank you, Meara.
Thank you so much. And it's a real pleasure to have Ben here. And I hope it answers most of your questions regarding property investment in Abu Dhabi. So it's very easy as long as you have the right partner in this journey, like either a good sales agent or a good property manager. And I think it should be very smooth. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.